Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Vicens.
And my name is Chloe Jones.
And we are both sophomores at the University of Illinois, Urbana, Champaign, studying special education. And at the university, we are taking a class called Education 202, in which we have to create a social justice project. And so for us, we wanted to create a big lesson plan that addresses colonialism and manifest destiny in our education system, and kind of Native education, because we believe that it's kind of lacking in our school system. And so when you're looking at this video, I hope you can follow along with the lesson plan that is going to be linked in the description. It should have everything that we're going to be talking about, so I would just say follow along with it, just so everything we're saying kind of makes more sense. And so we're going to move down. We did list 4 different Common Core standards that address kind of the things that are in this, so if you're looking for something that may address one of these standards, this is a great lesson to be doing for it. And then we kind of transition to saying the land acknowledgement. So for us at the university, we have a specific one that is linked with our university just because we are on specific native lands. And so basically any kind of presentation that is given here always addresses this. And we think that it is really important for, anywhere or any presentation to say this, and especially a kind of lesson that addresses native populations. So I would say that if you don't know, I would say it's a great way to research and just figure out what native lands are on your school's grounds. It's a great way of just kind of starting off a lesson that is going to be addressing a deeper topic like this.
Okay, so I guess starting off with the lesson plan, besides the land acknowledgement statement, we kind of came up with you're going to start off by defining the 2 words colonialism and manifest destiny. You should use a board or whatever just so you can break these down visually, so that because these can be complex words for younger learners, so it doesn't mean that it's something that you should not talk about at all. It just means that you should make it so that they use words that are easier for them to understand. So again, display it visually, break down colonialism and manifest destiny into the 2. So for colonialism, it would be colonial, which means white European settler during the time which the United States was colonized, and then ism, which would be a distinctive practice, system, or philosophy. So kind of when you break down the word colonialism, you'll have the 2 separate roots of the word to kind of define what colonialism is. And so the second word we would do is manifest destiny. So you would break down manifest and then destiny, and manifest would be something that is clear or obvious to the mind, and then destiny would be something that is meant to be. And obviously, students might not get this instantly, but I just think bringing it up and talking about it, because those are the main they're the main ideas of this lesson, is very important that they kind of get a grasp on that.
Yeah, it's always important to give overviews for concepts, because these are the 2 main things that are kind of going to keep coming back in the lesson, so it is very important to be addressing those things. Okay, so then the next part that we're going to kind of be talking about is the picture that is listed below. So if you scroll a little bit down past the questions, you'll see kind of the main photo that is addressing the first Thanksgiving. And so a couple of the key questions that we wanted to bring up are: explain who's the narrator of this photo, ask why point of view is so important when looking at art, ask what might be wrongly depicted in this photo, what's the purpose of this narrative. I think art is always something that is supposed to kind of encapsulate a moment in time, and so I think it's important to have our kids start understanding what is being portrayed here, who is portraying it, because again, you can sort of see although the relationship in this photo may be showing that the colonials are giving the food to the natives and everything, it was more of an equal relationship, and so I think it's important to acknowledge that, and that a lot of the times in these photos and art, it's addressing these colonials as above the natives, and so I think we need to address that in the actual relationship and in the actual history. These were equals. They were not, one was not above the other. I think that's something that is very important, because I believe that our education system does not address that well enough right now. And so then when we go beyond this, we're going to kind of take it more into a modern lens.
Yeah, so I know especially in, there's examples everywhere really, but one of the biggest ones in our area, in the Champaign Urbana area, is obviously the chief. And although it was the chief was removed as the mascot in around 2008, it is still obviously a very big part of the culture, like U of I culture, and like especially the town, even though it's very wrong. So I think there's definitely a lack of education surrounding why it's like wrong to use someone as a mascot, especially like these Native American people. So we have a couple of questions going along with like the image of like the chief as the mascot or whatever. So just questions like, how does seeing a mascot like this make you feel? Like, why are mascots like the Illini chief not an actual representation? And it's like a fake honoring of the culture. And I guess asking them like examples that they have seen in their lives about mascots that they've seen, just like, you know, like in the media, just anywhere that they think is wrong, I guess, and
some of the something that you could do if you want to do right before this is kind of give a scale of like 1 to 10. You could say like 1 is being like this should absolutely not be happening, 10 being like I totally agree, I think, you know, mascots should be allowed. I'd say kind of give a, you know, consensus of your class. What do they feel about this before you kind of start going into all the questions, just to get a kind of a general consensus of how your class is feeling about it. And then, you know, hopefully, you know, maybe their minds will change a little bit about this, whether they agree or whether they don't. And so I think, you know, these questions can be a discussion. You know, it's not just supposed to be the teacher kind of giving out to the class. It's supposed to be, you know, you could go into breakout groups and just kind of like have, turn to the person next to you and talk about this. So it's meant to be a big conversation. This isn't supposed to just be us as teachers telling it to our students. And so I think that's really important to acknowledge, because that's going to create this better discussion. So continuing on with our kind of modern lens that we're looking at things, and as Chloe kind of started mentioning, we want to address kind of brands that talk about this. Brands in movies, I would say, and just kind of media portrayal. And so one of the quotes that we found in our background research stated, the commercialized examples are, of course, easy, low-hanging fruit, if you will. And that is exactly the point. By minimizing the scope of Native Americans to specific visual representations and constructing limited portrayals as ubiquitous, such presentations become accepted, believed, and strengthened by larger society. And so some of the questions we wanted to address, it's talking about kind of these specific brands that are using these pictures and names, you know, let's say the Jeep Grand Cherokee or the Land O'Lakes butter. These things are using their names without even giving a portion of the profits to them. And so, I think it's kind of, again, creating that conversation within your class and saying, hey, is this okay? Or, what do you think should be done about this? And then again, kind of addressing movies and media portrayal, we kind of brought up some Disney movies. So, I want to, there's a lot of movies that have Native Americans and address that type of stuff in them, but I think it's important to kind of relate it to the classroom that you're teaching. So if it's elementary, I would say, Disney movies are probably the easiest way to do it, just because most likely a majority of your students have seen them or at least heard of them. And so we brought up Peter Pan, and then we also brought up Pocahontas. I do know that on Disney Plus, Peter Pan, the Native American scene has been cut out of it, so maybe some of your students haven't seen it, so that might be important to address, that this is a scene that was in this movie if they didn't know about that. And then again, talking about, why is this portrayal wrong and what might be done, say if, for some reason, I know one of the questions we said addresses like, say this is a big part of the movie that can't be cut out for plot reasons or it just wouldn't make sense, because I know in the Peter Pan movie they were able to remove it, but what about movies that they can't? Talking about that, again, having them start thinking about solutions to these problems, because that's important as well. Again, a big part of this lesson is we want them to be starting to become like critical thinkers and think about these topics in a more complex way. And so have them create solutions to the problems and not just say, hey, what's the problem? I think that's a really important part of this lesson as well. And then kind of finishing off.
Yeah, so finishing off with this lesson, we found this it's kind of like a game. It's like the student is walked through different how would you call it, different
it's an interactive
yeah
game.
It's like an interactive game that there's different places that were
a part of the first Thanksgiving.
Yeah, a part of the first Thanksgiving. Sorry. And so it kind of just like, there's like mini games and stuff, and it kind of like teaches the students about like the people who lived there. I know a big one is like the Wampanoag, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but that tribe, and and it like just talks about, different like vocab terms, just different,
a lot about the culture
yes,
of
a
that
lot about,
area,
yes,
because that is a tribe that was around during the first Thanksgiving, and so this is the major tribe that interacted with the first colonials who came to America, and so it's important to kind of address that. Through this game, it's an interactive way for them to kind of learn about this topic. It's definitely a little more lighthearted, and it's definitely not going to fully address kind of what's going on with the culture and everything, but it's still a great way for them to be hearing about the culture and just learning about it without having to also hear kind of things that they should hopefully learn in the future of their education beyond, elementary grades. It's also really cool because at the end of the game, you find out that it was actually created by 2 students who are their age. So that's a great way to kind of just see that, these are topics that they can understand, they can become historians, they can become this way, and they can start it right now. It doesn't have, they don't have to wait till they're older, they can do it right now, and they can create big things like that.
Yeah, and I think adding on to what Daniel just said, I think a big thing, people say, oh, like this is like too hard for young students to understand, or this is too deep for them, but in like reality, it's not. Like, you can't just use that as an excuse to like not teach about these topics. So I think, our lesson plan is an example of how you can teach this to younger students and that they can actually grasp this and understand it.
And then kind of one more thing to connect to this lesson, in another one of our articles on the background research, we did kind of learn that the Wampanoag tribe is still fighting for their lands, even this past year of 2021. And so it is really important to be addressing these topics because this is happening right now. And so I think, for our students, we want them to be, more active in the world. We want them to start seeing the problems that are occurring and why we should be allies in this way and be, aiding in the fight for these native tribes. And that, again, that's all correlated to being a critical thinker. It's seeing the world and, questioning why is this going on and what can I do to make it better. And then kind of our overall end goal, a big part of our class is addressing abolitionist teaching. And so one half of it is the curriculum that you have in your school. And so again, this lesson is part of that kind of idea that we want more critical thinking curriculum. We want them to be, thinking about these bigger topics that address these social justice issues and, make them start thinking about solutions and ways that we can fix these problems in our society. And then that will hopefully translate also to the other side in which they are being more politically active, that they are starting to think about how now, okay, I know what I want to do and what solutions I want. Now, how can I help aid in the fight to change that? And so how can I be, more out in my community? How can I be helping my community with this fight and be changing those things in our classroom? And also another thing that's really important, and kind of the last article in our background research, we learned about this kind of teacher archetype called Lady Bountiful, and it's this idea that the teachers are created because we are meant to tame wild ones or wild cultures, and so our job and why our job was kind of created is to, make sure that people are assimilating into our culture. And so I think that's important to acknowledge because, lessons that go like this are addressing that as well, that, as an archetype, we don't want to fit into that. We want to be breaking those boundaries and breaking the things that are holding teachers back and creating that oppression in our education system. And so, again, I think lessons like this are really great because they are helping our students and helping us as well, that we are both, it's kind of a 2-in-1 relationship, that it's like, we are able to also be creating big change within the classroom and also kind of going against those archetypes and going against those things that teachers are supposed to be rooted into. So I hope that you all find that this lesson was really awesome and, maybe you can implement it in your own classroom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.